Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and so far on the show with Kaldheim, I've opened up draft boosters, set boosters, and a pre-release pack. And today, I'm moving on to one very near and dear to my heart, the 2 commander decks coming out with Kaldheim. So I thought I'd crack these open, tell you what's inside, and a little bit about how they were constructed. Let's do it. Hello everybody, and I hope you're excited to open up some commander decks. We've got the blue-white Phantom Premonition deck and the black-green Elven Empire deck today. These are both of the brand new decks with Kaldheim, and I'm going to crack them both open and tell you some fun stories about the cards in all of them. So let's get to it. We're going to start with the black-green Elven Empire deck here. Now, I'll show you the back. I'm not going to be doing any cuts during this video, so you're going to hear all of my thoughts and all of the stories, so I wanted to kind of save it all for you. These kind of full videos are always a lot of fun to do. So let's crack this thing open and see exactly what you get when you open one up. So you crack open the top here, then you take out this little insert. Bam! Goodbye packaging. Looks so gorgeous on the shelf. All right. Here is all of this. And then down here, you do get a deck box that comes with the deck that has the art on it. I believe that's of a different vantage point of Lathril, which is pretty cool. Got the Planeswalker symbol on it, that nice little like Kaldheim style right there. Elven Empire in the back, so your opponents know what you're playing. Or, put something else in here. Distract them, whatever you want to do. You've got this life wheel, which you've never seen one of these before. It's a great way to keep track of your life total. You can do it all in one hand. And one side goes up to 40, 21 to 40, and this side goes all the way up from 1 to 20. So it's pretty convenient and easy to play with. And like I said, you can do it one-handed, which is really nice. I've enjoyed playing with these a lot. Back when we were playing in the office, we used these. A little insert on how to play Commander, which you probably know if you're watching this video, but if you don't, you can read this or go check out one of my other videos about it. And some flavor on the character. So it tells you all about Lathril. Lathril hails from ancient times, before the elven race was split in two, and represents the apex of elven glory. She was a natural leader and master tactician whose prowess kept the elves in a place of power for aeons. Unafraid to wade into the battle personally, she often fought at the head of her forces, dealing death in all directions and rallying her troops to turn even crushing defeat into defiant victory. All kinds of fun stuff here. There's more flavor. I won't read it all in a dramatic voice, but there you go. I'm not going to tell you how to play Commander today, but I will put a video up here on the screen somewhere that explains Commander if you want to go check it out. It's a great format. Okay, so without further ado, though, let's get into the meat and potatoes of everything, the decks. So the first thing about the decks, so there's one front-facing legendary commander that shows up in them. We got Lathril right here. But unlike the Commander Legends and Kaldheim and Zendikar Rising decks, there are more new cards in these decks. The reason why there's more new cards than in those decks, the prior ones, is because this is a brand new world, Kaldheim. And we want the decks to feel enough like the world that we're going to, and to do that, some additional new cards was a really great way to make it happen. Where with Zendikar, for example, you already had a bunch of previous Zendikar cards we could draw upon. So, yes, there are more new cards this time around, which is really exciting, and Lathril, of course, Front-Facing Legend, is one of those brand new cards. To the surprise of nobody, the deck called Elven Empire is an elf deck, so you can expect plenty of elf shenanigans going on here and fun elf tribal stuff. It was kind of developed in parallel with the black-green elves theme from Kaldheim, from Commander Legends, and they weren't even originally intended to kind of show up at exactly the same time, but here they are, and I think it's actually pretty cool that you can play them both together. And this is a pretty good way to helm out your black-green elves deck you might have had with Commander Legends. All right, so let's open this up and see what we get inside. I always find those kind of synergies, there's always debate around, should we do different things all the time or having some same things all the time, okay? I mean, of course we want to do plenty of different things, but having some cross-set synergies like that I think are great, right? You get all your black-green elves from Commander Legends, and then you're looking for more cards for your deck, and you don't have to wait 9 years or whatever till they show up again. You can get some more black-green elves right here in Kaldheim. So, goodbye packaging. We're gonna start looking through the cards. Here's a little ambitions cost for you. Fun fact, here's a fun little trivia fact about ambitions cost. There is another version called Ancient Craving from a different Portal set. So I think they both actually originated in Portal, different Portal sets. I don't know, that's my fun fact. But, often we're looking to make sure that there's enough card draw in Commander decks, and, in black-green, you can either harmonize, which is not really in color pie. We don't really give green ways to just draw cards without having creatures in play. Or you can do it a black way, where you lose some life in the process. All right, Eyeblight colors. Speaking of Commander Legends cards, here you go. A little elf tribal card that'll give you some tokens. You might have seen this one recently. Eyeblight Massacre, also reprinted in Commander Legends recently, and also showing up here. A great sweeper that'll blow up your opponent's stuff. You always want to have enough board sweepers in Commander Legends, or in a given commander. Some nice elf removal. Way to turn your extra elves into killing off your opponent's creatures. One thing about the way that this deck plays out is you can't just really play a traditional creature type focused deck like in Commander because of all the board sweepers. You think about goblins, you think of soldiers, you think of elves, and you kind of go wide on the board. Well, and then you attack and try and kill your opponent quickly. That's how these decks often play out. Well, in Commander, with a 4-player game, there's going to be wraths running around, there's 40 life, etc. So you're going to need ways to have a way to sustain yourself going long. And so what you actually want to do is play a bunch of things that will, it'll help out your tribe, but they'll give you things like card advantage, give you things like longevity, which cards like Miara do really well, making sure that you can draw cards as your elves die. Cards like the Lissalana Scarblade give you extra removal to kind of give you that longevity to kill off your opponent's stuff as the game continues to go on. So you don't just want to jam in all your cheap to cast aggressive cards. You really want to have a nice mix of ways to turn your tribal bonuses into plenty of cards drawn. And cards that will survive wraths, like this Pride of the Perfect is a great example. Yep, you can just cast it, it'll stick around, the board gets swept, don't worry about it. When Lathril comes back down and makes some tokens, you'll be in really good shape. And here's another tribal enchantment that's great for helping you survive just that, with wraths, right? Your opponent wraths the board, hey, you get a bunch of tokens out of it, you're good to go. Classic Elvish Mystic, yes, of course, mana producer. Great way to double up your elves. You do still want to go wide with your elves. You do still want to get a lot of them, so you can get all of those bonuses from your other cards, and do things like activate Lathril's big ability here of tapping 10 untapped elves you control. You just don't want this to be the only thing that you are doing. A little bit of elf mana ramp. Yeah, I've got some good old elf mana ramp in here. Going wide makes big creatures. This is a funny card from Modern Horizons. We joked with this card, and it was a fun social media meme for a while. What would be the funniest 1-drop to staple 3 of together, right? So Linowar Tribe is what originated this discussion. But we've talked about, of course, like triple Suntail Hawk, triple Goblin Guide, these 6/6 for RRR. That's a fun one. What do you have? Let me know in the comments down below. What do you think would be the funniest triple 1-drop? Salon Huntmaster gives you more elves. You might notice a theme of a lot of elves. So when we're building our compact No-Made Shepherd, I need you. Oh no, it's on the floor now. Ugh, it's very precarious here. Okay, No-Made Shepherd. So one thing we do when we build precons is we try and make sure that if it's a color that can destroy artifacts or enchantments, there are ways in there to blow it up, to blow them up for a couple of reasons. First of all, we want to make sure that you always feel like you have an out to artifacts and enchantments, provided it's the thing that your color does. Because there are a lot of nasty ones that show up in Commander decks, and the goal of these decks is you can hop into a Commander pod and play right away. Second of all, as decks that are great if you're coming into the game or coming into Commander, we want to kind of show you like what good deck building principles are, and that you should play some amount of artifact and enchantment hate, and sometimes even graveyard hate in your main deck. So yes, this is an elf. Yes, it's on theme, but that's really important as kind of a guidepost for new players coming into the format. Additionally, you'll note on Null-Made Shepherd, brand new artwork. Even though it's a reprint card, we still have refaced a few cards in the decks, and Null-Made Shepherd is one of them. So there's some brand new Null-Made Shepherd art for you. And new flavor text to boot. More Commander Legends goodies right here with Numa. Reclamation Sage, once again, a way to blow up artifacts and enchantments. So important to have around in these pre-constructed decks. Or just really any Commander decks. I hope that, I know they're always tempting to cut, but hopefully you don't cut yours. Silvan Messenger, I remember when this came out in Apocalypse. That was back before creature type focused decks were really a big thing. And then, of course, Onslaught kicked it into high gear, and I was really happy that this card has finally kind of seen its day and got reprinted in a core set, been played, and now is, a great card to have in Commander. Once again, an elf that gives you card advantage for playing it. The elves you're going to want to play in your Commander decks will often do this, give you card advantage when you play them. So, or, Niara as they die, things like that. Speaking of Onslaught block, this is a classic. It might not give you card advantage, but it does give plus a million advantage, which is a pretty good advantage to have. One thing to note about the Onslaught era tribal cards, which is not something we do today, but you should always be aware of, is they count the number of their type on the battlefield, not just your own. So when you're playing with Timberwatch Elf, be very careful to note any other elves your opponents might have, because they'll give you extra bonuses. We don't do this anymore because it is so confusing, and frankly, disincentivizes you to want to play tribes sometimes. You'll be like, oh my gosh, well, if I play my elf deck against their elf deck, we're going to be well-wishing back and forth forever, and it's going to be a nightmare. But anyway, in this case, it's probably just a couple extra bonus in a commander game, but keep an eye out for it. You never know what it'll get pumped by. So here's another one of the brand new cards that shows up in these Commander Legends decks. Voice of Mini. This is some green card draw attached to a creature. Like I said, we don't give green card draw normally that doesn't have to do with creatures in some way. And this certainly has to do with creature, being that you want to have more creatures than your opponents, and it is attached to a creature itself. So it's kind of a new take on that. And this is also an interesting class of Commander card that we're experimenting with, where it scales on the number of opponents you have. So if you're playing a traditional 4-player game of Commander, well, you can only draw 3 cards maximum with it. But in a 4-player game, you could draw up to 4, or, if you kill people off, it becomes worse. So I'd be curious to know what folks think about these. Do they enjoy the kind of scaling up and down on opponents? This also gives it more play in other multiplayer formats as well. Do you not like this? It's also a great way to make cards that would not be reasonable to make for one-on-one play, right? They might impact Legacy or something like that. But because they count the number of opponents, you're only going to have one opponent in a format like Legacy. So let me know what you think about cards like these in the comments down below. I'd be curious to know what you think. Speaking of cards, by the way, that scale on the number of elves on the battlefield, here's another Onslaught era one, which is quite nice to get extra mana if your opponent has a Llanowar Elf or something hanging out. So keep an eye out for it. Wood Elves, yes. Classic, along with the Farhaven Elf here, for giving you that extra mana. Very nice. Abomination of Llanowar, one of the new black-green commanders from Commander Legends. You've probably seen this one. Golgari Finebroker. So our line for this set, by the way, so you know how these decks work, is the new cards are all set on Kaldheim, and the reprint cards can be from anywhere, right? So you'll have the Golgari hanging out, and Zendikar Elves and Dominaria Elves all in the same place. So it's not weird to have a Golgari card here, even though it's Kaldheim themed. Just the new cards on Kaldheim, and those additional new cards over the Zendikar Rising deck, for example, help give it a bit more of that Kaldheim flavor. Great way to, once again, make sure that your dying elves turn into cards. You want to make sure you have enough of effects like these if you're building a deck like this. And ways to punish people for sweeping your board, like the Poison Tip Archer. Classic removal spell and Putrefy. We also want to make sure that people get, the common and uncommon commander staples to start being cornerstones for their decks. And Putrefy goes in so many black-green decks that it's nice if you're a new player. You can come in and grab this deck and have Putrefy at the ready. Shaman of the Pack, yep, staple black-green card. This deck, it's a lot like, oh, that's an elf tribal card. That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to play this in this deck. Now, let's go into new cards. Another new card here, Pact of the Serpent. Choose a creature type. Target player draws X cards and loses X life, where X is the number of creatures they control of the chosen type. In this deck, you're going to choose Elf a lot, but what I really like about cards like these is the open-endedness. Back in Commander 2017, we kind of pioneered this. I was the lead of that team, and the idea was with cards like Kindred Dominance and the Kindred Cycle to allow you to build your own tribal deck, basically. Choose the creature type you wanted so that it had play in more places than just one place. And so we've tried to preserve that, especially in Commander products, because there are so many tribes people want to build, right? People message me all the time, hey, I want to build my Homunculus tribal deck. Hey, I want to build my Rogues tribal deck, whatever the tribe is that they care about. And Pact of the Serpent can go into both those and be pretty interesting. And of course, a big card draw spell is often exactly what this kind of strategy wants. So it's pretty cool. I would expect this to be a card that shows up in most black tribal-based decks. So pretty easy to make this, a draw draw 6, draw 7. And Commander, which is pretty solid. Speaking of new cards, we've got another one here, Ruthless Winnower, sort of like an Anawan for elves. And in Commander, once again, we love playing with the idea that an ability might trigger multiple turns for each opponent, right? It just lets you create cards that scale well in a multiplayer game. And Ruthless Winnower is a great example of this, making everyone sack a creature on their upkeep, non-elf. So you'll usually keep your creatures. Each of your opponent will sack on theirs. You can start abyssing people with this if they're not careful. But we can make cards like this in Commander because it's not just one-on-one, where it'd be really easy to get your opponent into an abyss kind of a lock style situation with the Ruthless Winnower. Not that Anawan caused too many problems. But here's another new card, the Serpent's Soul Jar. You'll note that we moved into the rare section of the deck, or now we're going to start hitting a bunch of stamped cards. This is a brand new tribal card. One thing that we started doing only recently is making colored artifacts. We didn't really do a lot of that Alara aside, but really recently we decided, yes, we'll make more colored artifacts. It allows us to create cards for specific decks that don't just go in anything. This wants you to specifically be playing black, and it's good in very good in your elf tribal deck here. So you can't just play this in a mono green elf deck. You need to be playing black for this. And one of the challenges with building a black green elf deck was giving you reasons to expand to other colors. Right? Why are we black? Why are we not just mono green here? And finding things that black can add to elves that green wouldn't be able to do on its own is pretty interesting space for us to explore. And that's where the Soul Jar comes in. And that is why it's black instead of just being a colorless artifact, even though it keys off of elves in particular. Bounty of Skemfar. Reveal the top 6 cards of your library. You get to play a land from among them, and an elf card from among them goes into your hand. Ramp plus draw a card. It doesn't take much to make that strong. And try to get the autofocus here to focus a little better. Ramp plus draw a card is always a strong combination in Commander, right? Cultivate sees a lot of play. This is like Elf Cultivate. Get an elf into your hand and a land into play. And this is great at all points in the game, pretty much. You can miss. Right, you're looking at 6 cards. If you don't have enough elves, it is possible you can miss. But most of the time, you will get an elf and a land out of this and be a pretty happy camper. Canopy Tactician. This is a card from the Theme Booster rares that we also pulled into the Commander decks. A little elf tribal lord that gives you a huge mana boost. There are a few bigger elves in this deck, and more importantly, like lots of things you want to do with your mana. When you're drawing all these cards, as I showed off earlier, making sure that you can then dump a bunch more elves on the battlefield is nice, and then overwhelm your opponent with the +1/+1 bonus is great too. So, Canopy Tactician, nice additional place you can pick this card up. Crown of Skemfar. Speaking of, I feel like a broken record. Yes, it's an elf tribal card. It's an elf deck, but this is a way to make going wide matter. Like, okay, a +1/+1 bonus, like on Canopy Tactician, it's nice. It's not bad. I'm not going to complain about it. But in Commander, +1/+1 and all your stuff once is not necessarily going to get the job done. An enchantment that gives a creature +7, +7, +8, +8, and has resiliency from the graveyard, so once again it will survive a wrath, is exactly the kind of thing that an elf deck or any kind of tribal deck would want to have. So this gives you some great resiliency and allows you to hit really, really hard. Wolverine Riders. Talking again about the gameplay of doing things on every upkeep or for each opponent. It's another one of the scaling cards. I would really love your feedback on this kind of thing, the Verdant Force, quote-unquote, mechanic, in the comments down below. So please, if you have any, leave it down there. But this is another take on that will give you a lot of elves, right? You cast this, and in a 4-player Commander game, by the time you come back to your next turn's main phase, you will have 4 more elf tokens. So that is quite a bit, and of course, 4 life in the process there. Elder Fang Venom. So once again, what makes elves black? Why are we playing with all these black elves? Well, draining your opponents for life is not a thing that green would do on its own, and being on enchantment lets it stick around. So this is once again bring the best of both worlds together a little bit, of making sure that you will have that resiliency late in the game, and that every time that you get Wrath, you get to nug all of your opponents for some damage. Pretty easy to turn this card into, oh, you're going to Wrath me? How about you all take 8 instead? And that can close out a game on its own and disincentivize your opponents from wiping the board, which is what you want to do here. All right, back to the reprints. Beast Whisperer hanging out. I think I've told the story in the last one, but I'm sure people didn't are watching this one that didn't watch that one. When you look at these decks, because of how they're manufactured, normally, and we'll see it's possible that something is weird here and I'm wrong, but at least until you get to the lands, which are probably on their own sheet, you're going to put all of the rares together on the same sheet because they're stamped. They have this security stamp down here. So that's why we're now getting into the rare section. We started with the commons and uncommons, and now we're getting into the rares. Except for, of course, the front-facing card, which is separate on the front of the box. So looking through the rares, they're all stacked together. Cultivator of Blades, another nice way to, overrun your team, give everything +3/+3 whenever it attacks. Pretty darn nice in your tribal deck here. Lots of lords from throughout Magic's history. Super fun to see the full mix. I think Reese the Redeemed is in here too. Elvish Archdruid, another fun one. I think this isn't new art, but this is promo art, I believe, that you might have not seen before. So cool to have that in here instead of the original art. Maybe we use it somewhere else. But I think it was just promo art we used once or maybe twice. Ways to end the game. Yeah, if you're gonna play some non-elves in your elf deck, you're gonna want some ways to close out the game. Of course, you could play a card like Crater Hoof Behemoth or Enray's Forerunners. Some people might aim for combo shenanigans, but yeah, this is exactly the right kind of thing to do. Another way to make sure that your tribal deck has legs going long is to just have a lot of lands in play so you can cast your big hitters without needing the mana acceleration that your elf deck, all your Little Elves provide. This turns all of your tapped elves into extra lands, which is going to be pretty potent. Thin all those lands out of your deck, make your draws a little more alive, and have a bunch of mana for you to cast all your late game spells. This kind of thing's super nice. Yeah, talk about an awesome classic card. When this showed up in lore, when this became like the de facto elf style beloved lord for a while. So yeah, more elf lords. Marwyn the Nurturer. Always loved, by the way, Marwyn the Nurturer, given that she's just carrying her baby. I think it's cool to see that representation here of like, oh, I'm just carrying this baby on my front. No big deal. I'm still an awesome warrior. Or I guess druid, but hey. Masked Admirers, more elf tribal, more, once again, longevity, card advantage. Really important. Reese the Exiled. I've not seen this character in a while, but one of the old black-green elves, old black-green elf legends. Give you a bunch of life, can regenerate, stick around through a wrath. Surprisingly hard to deal with this creature now that so few removal spells. Well, I don't want to say as because you can't exile, but it used to be can't be regenerated on a lot of your removal spells, which was always this funny joke of green has regeneration, and then all of black's removal spells so can't be regenerated on it, right? Why even bother? But now most removal spells will not mention regenerate because it's not a keyword we actively support anymore. So this is a lot stronger than it used to be. Voice of the Woods, featuring brand new artwork for this, by the way. So check out that new take on Voice of the Woods. And this is a pretty good compliment to, hey, you're not quite at 10 untapped elves yet for Lathril. Well, how about 5 untapped elves, making some nice big elementals? Some people might ask, how do you choose which cards get new artwork? If they're or which reprint cards, get new artwork? It's a good question. So we actually have an art director assigned to every set. And the art director does a review of the artwork with the set lead and some other creative members sometimes, creative team members. And together they like flag cards. They think, oh, this will be a cool place to, facelift the art for this plane in particular, or this is a card players really like that, you want a new art version of. And in this case, it was like, yeah, there's this old version of Voice of the Woods from Onslaught Block. Doesn't really fit what's going on in this world. We could probably make a really cool new looking Voice of the Woods that could then go in, all kinds of other places in the future, because it's a pretty cool card. That's what happened there. Nice black-green card here. Yeah, does a little bit of everything. You want to make sure you have enough board sweepery or, pinpoint removal. I don't know, this isn't really a sweeper, it's not really pinpoint removal, but just blow up a lot of stuff style cards in here. In these kind of decks, once again, you want to make sure that usually we aim for, my general rule when building a commander pre-constructed deck, and of course it wiggles up and down, is about 2 Wraths style effects if your deck is not playing a super long game strategy and like trying to like be the control deck, and 3 if you are trying to be the control deck. But to clarify, I didn't build these decks. I was the architect for this product, so I worked with the designers on it. The designers here were Corey Bowen, and then Chris Mooney supported as well. And so I know what's in them. I know about the new cards. We talked through a lot of the decisions that were made. But when it comes to like this, a lot of the individual card decisions, that was on them. So my Hero 6 might not be represented 100%, but in general, you'll see a lot of those philosophies come through. Arcane Signet, yeah, this is a card that we basically said, hey, we printed this in the Brawl decks. Everyone wants this for the Commander decks. It's a staple. Let's just keep putting it in Commander products over and over and over again. So you can expect to see a lot of Arcane Signets in your future. And, this is a card where, in retrospect, it was trying to do a very noble thing for Brawl. Brawl was a format that did not have good mana fixing, and it did not have any kind of really 2-mana artifact acceleration. So we made this card for Brawl because it was serving a very noble purpose there. If I could do it over again, I would probably not make this card just because I think it has become a little bit too ubiquitous, and we don't want to homogenize Commander. But it exists now, so let's make sure everyone, it's a common. It should go in most Commander decks. Let's make sure people can get copies of these. So you'll see a lot of these. Speaking of cards that go in every Commander deck, there's your Soul Ring. Yeah, I don't think there'll probably be a time somewhere where it happens, maybe in some weird product, but I don't think we'll realistically ever make a product without Soul Ring, a Commander product, a Commander deck without Soul Ring in it. It's interesting that these weren't stamped at the end. Oh, well, all right, going into the land base, we got Command Tower. Speaking of staples, plenty of black-green lands. Just going to kind of go through these quick. Love bounce lands. Always happy to see them show up. We'll stop at any particularly cool ones here. Path of Ancestry. Speaking of awesome tribal-focused lands, was just reprinted in Commander Legends, but great to have here too. Bunch of swamps. Some people ask me sometimes, how is the artwork chosen for fixed deck products? And usually what happens is we just, there's an art director once again assigned to the set and an editor, and they look at what would be appropriate for the deck. So if it's if you're building a Commander deck and the front-facing Commander is from, I don't know, I'll pick a random plane, Ugrotha. I don't know why I picked that one. I would pick basic lands that are Ugrotha themed. Not that there are any, but I just like Ugrotha fans. Shout out! Someday I want to do more with that plane. I love you. Right. So there's the green forests. And then we got some more stuff here at the back. More spells. Elderfang Ritualist. Getting back your elves. These are cards that are actually, this card is actually in Kaldheim. With the change of expansion symbol there. We have a unique expansion symbol for the cards in these decks, but if it's from Kaldheim directly, we just kept the Kaldheim expansion symbol. So this is an Elderfang Ritualist. Poison the Cup. Also a brand new Kaldheim card. If you blow something up and foretell. These are all from Kaldheim, so I'm going to skip through them relatively fast here, but just so you can see what's going on. And of course, Kaldheim having Elf Tribal as a black-green theme. Well, hey, yeah, you're going to see some Elf Tribal stuff going on. When you're going wide, a lot of stuff to sacrifice is always great. This is basically Elvish Promenade Part 2, except not an elf itself because of the weirdo tribal mechanic. I get asked sometimes, are you going to do more cards with the tribal super type? It's a pretty popular question. Shows up a decent amount. The answer is probably not. It was a big headache to make work, and until the end of time, people will ask us, hey, why is this thing not tribal? Like, why is this Goblin Grenade not tribal with this other card tribal? Eroding a bunch of old cards isn't really something we like to do, or it makes a lot of sense. And the rules type is a huge headache for various rules reasons. And we did try bringing it back once with the Eldrazi, right? You may or may not even remember this in Rise of the Eldrazi. And that didn't really go over very well either. So yeah, tribal, never say never. Like, I could see it showing up in a Horizon-style product, like that kind of thing. But as far as being a main set mechanic, showing up a lot in standard sets, I would not plan on it. So now we get to the tokens. We got a brand new elemental for that Voice of the Woods. A bunch of them. So I'm planning on making a lot of elementals, I guess. I don't know about you. Some servos for the Fabricate card that was in there. And they're all double-sided tokens. So, of course, on the back, lots of Elf Warriors. We were making a lot of Elf Warriors with these cards. Love these double-sided tokens. They're always great. There's a little tip at the back telling you about different formats. If you want to learn more, you can go to wizards.com/formats. And a little turn reminder card. Once again, these decks are, they're great for all Magic players, but especially if you're coming into Magic or a new Commander player, this is like a perfect introductory point for you. And, giving you some tools in here. Like even a single card like this can go a really long way from a product design standpoint. Because for anyone who knows Magic, knows Commander, whatever, you just, take this aside, do whatever you want with it, throw it in the trash if you want to. But for a newer player, this kind of thing can be really, really helpful. So we're happy to include stuff like this. Okay, so that is the black-green deck and what you'll find in there. Now let's move into the blue-white deck. Let's take a look at Phantom Premonition. So Phantom Premonition has to do with Exile and Foretell. One thing we try and do with these decks is tie into the set themes, right? So you saw green, black elves, of course. Makes a lot of sense. We wanted to do one that was based around something else that was interesting with the set themes, and that would be Foretell. But, I mean, there's not really enough Foretell cards to make it work because there are no Foretell cards in Magic's history. Just solely on foretelling. There's a bunch of new foretell stuff in here too, so it can work from that perspective. But we wanted to trigger off of other things too, and so that's why we ended up with this having a bit of a blink sub theme too. All kinds of the exile stuff from your hand, in the blinks from the battlefield. To trigger its second ability as well, or third ability past the keywords. So it's got a bit of additional hooks and a bit of extra variety. And that's just one thing that we like to do is make sure that a commander isn't just necessarily for one thing. There are multiple deck building hooks that you can build with it. Especially once again, when you're using a mechanic that that doesn't have prior support. Elves, of course, has plenty of prior support, so that one was an easy slam dunk. This one is a little more nebulous, but I personally always love blinking and blink decks. So, all right, we're gonna crack this open here, take this off, say hello to Raynar. Here's our deck. I'm gonna show you the deck box. You're probably used to this one by this point, because given that you saw this before, but here is the deck box. Oops, hanging out here. Awesome alternate art of Raynar on the front. This is what shows up on the. So you're wondering where? Okay, well this is the card version of Raynar, and there's our. Where does this come from? This is the packaging art that we commissioned just for the packaging. So same for both commanders. Here's another cool version of this deck box, Phantom Premonition. You've got Raynar here. You've got your little insert again with how to play Commander on one side. We're going to skip past that. Once again, I've got a video you can watch if you want to learn how to play Commander. And then the story on the other side. Let's talk a little bit about Raynar. I'll read just the first paragraph here. In life, Raynar was an honored warrior in service to a noble Jarl. During a Doomscar, his kingdom was assaulted by raiders from another realm. The Jarl himself led a warband to intercept the raiders' forces, leaving Raynar alone to guard the kingdom's children. And then the Omen Path closed around the warriors, trapping them in the invaders' realm. You probably read the rest of that on your own, or pause the video if you want to read further. But I know for me personally, I want to get into all the cool cards. So we're going to start with Raynar here, who's the face commander for this deck. You saw him earlier. So it does work specifically with Foretell for the second ability, but once again, that third ability can work with Blink as well, and all kinds of other stuff too. So we will take a look at that here in a moment, kind of stuff this can do. It's a pretty cool commander with a lot of different options. Blink is a theme that we find players love. We're always trying to build in set themes or themes that are commander decks. We want to do some new stuff and some just beloved stuff. And giving you the tools to play a Blink deck early on is great because people love it. So having an introductory, experience to Magic like this deck could be, being a Blink strategy, can really get some players excited to play. All right, so. Banishing Light right here, a little bit of white removal. Cloud Goat Ranger, a Lorwyn classic, a great one to blink, so just keep your eyes out for some blinkiness. Another great one to blink, Evangel of Heliod. Oh, hello, it's a blink. So yes, Shocking Nobody, great with our prior two cards that allow you to make tokens when they enter the battlefield, and then this will also draw you a card if you have, or excuse me, not draw you a card, make you a 1/1 white spirit token with flying when you do this. So when you have this on the battlefield, so just gives that a little bit of a bonus. Really nice. Ghostly Prison. So this is something pretty cool. This is new artwork for Ghostly Prison. I don't believe this has been featured anywhere else. This is themed to the set. We looked through, hey, what's a card that could use a refacing? And Ghostly Prison is such a played card. It just made a lot of sense as a card to select for this. So that is where the new art for Ghostly Prison came from. Turned out great, and there's a new look for it you can grab in the decks. Golden Knight Commander. So there is, a bit of a tokens thing going on here, a bit of blink tokens. So going wide a little bit with cards like this is really nice. Cork Cartographer, a little bit of White Ramp. I know White Ramp is a much discussed topic. At some point on a Good Morning Magic episode, I will do a proper deep dive into what's going on with White and some upcoming stuff. But that's not going to be today, so I will skip past this and say yes, it is a White Ramp card, and it is in particular a good one to blink over and over again because it'll every time it comes into play, it'll give you a land. Momentary Blink, classic blue-white blink card. You really can't even think about blue-white blink without Momentary Blink. It's literally named after this card, so there you have it. Speaking in the last deck, I mentioned how important Artifact Enchantment removal was for these decks to show off good deck building tendencies. Return to Dust, staple. Wall of Omens, good to blink, good for early defense. This card is Terrorized Pauper. Lots of infinite combos you can do with this card, although not so much in this deck. Blink 2 cards. What's better than blinking 1 card? Blinking 2. So Ghostly Flicker. And if you're on the hunt for more Ghostly Flickers, you can always go check out Displace as well. It's kind of like a bonus Ghostly Flicker that can just not hit quite as many things. Mistraven, little bounce. Do not. One thing to not sleep on if you're playing this deck or building your own blink deck is, of course, it's usually not quite as strong. You can always use these Mana War style cards on your own creatures to reset them, get them back into your hand, and cast them again. So this kind of effect is not always bad to do on your own stuff, and just keep an eye out for when that might be relevant in your game. Of course, Mulldrifter. Can you even build a blink deck without Mulldrifter? Beautiful Magic card. What's there to say about Mulldrifter that hasn't been said already? I'll tell you one thing that you might not have ever done. This is a great combo. I remember doing this back in the day to very good effect. You evoke Mulldrifter, you cast Momentary Blink on it in response to the sacrifice trigger. Your Mulldrifter sticks around, and you draw 4 cards. So keep an eye out for instant blink effects with your Mulldrifters. You'll be very happy to draw more cards and keep your Mulldrifter. Also good to blink, Seagate Oracle. Whirler Rogue, once again good for blinking, going wide. Another thing we try and do in especially our pre-constructed decks, but even just in our draft formats in general, but really here is make sure that there are ways for games to end. And in Commander, the game can go a long time, right? Everyone plays out all their stuff, the board gets stalled. Having evasion and especially unblockability in your blue deck a little bit can just make sure that there is a way for the game to close out. And it's not only makes flying tokens, but also, lets your biggest creature connect through, or helps another player's big creature connect against an opponent. Keep in mind that it doesn't have to target your creatures. Bit of politics you can play here. Windfall, this card, it's always wild to me you can play with this card in Commander, given how ridiculous of a Magic card it is. But there you go. Yeah, what's better than 1 Mulldrifter? 2 Mulldrifters. Plenty of flying to go around. Pumps up all your flyers. Speaking of going wide, I love the basing land cycling cards. Just like these always feel so good to include in your Commander deck because worst case they turn into a land when you need one, and then if you need action later on, they're really great for that. Yeah, this is a hot one with this deck. Repeated blinking on your stuff also gets your opponent's stuff out of the way if you're trying to attack them, which is really great. It can totally mess up combat. You can attack with a bunch of stuff and then blink out something that they block to keep it alive. So this card is hot. Gets you lots of bird tokens when you're doing it with Raynar. Yeah, I mean, blink something every turn. Yes, I would love to blink something every turn. Great work, Soul Herder. More Flying Pump. It's a great way to help make sure the game ends. Arcane Signet. I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, you're going to see this in plenty of Commander decks going forward. And in a deck like this, you're just going to want enough mana ramp. The black-green deck had its elves doing that. In a slower blue-white deck, mid-rangey blue-white deck, you're going to have Signets and probably some other stuff. Burnished Heart, yeah. Commander Sphere, yeah. Diamonds, Meteor Golem. So one thing about blinking is when you can blow up anything, it's pretty good. So I guess I probably don't need to explain why this kind of thing can be awesome here. 7 mana is a lot, but when you start momentary blinking, this feels pretty nice. One of my favorite mana rocks. A lot of people do not play this card in Commander because it doesn't fix their mana. I love it. It's a mana rock you can play in your deck, and then late in the game, it just cycles away if you don't need one. Because the problem with mana rocks is always, it's turn 12, I drew a Signet. That kind of blows. This card, honestly, Arcane Signet gets a lot of the discussion and glory for its mana fixing, and it's a an ubiquitous card and whatever. I think in a lot of commander decks, Mind Stone is just better than Arcane Signet. Like it's only in games where you draw the Arcane Signet early and the mana fixing would matter that it is better than Mind Stone. So just keep that in mind when you're building. Mind Stone is a really great card. Yes, if you're playing 3, 4, 5 colors, that's a different story. But in a 2-color deck, Mind Stone for sure. Brand new card, hooray! Cosmic Intervention. If you are a very mean person, you might play this with Armageddon, but I would not. If you do that, I will probably not want to play against your deck again. So, I guess you value what's important to you. Maybe you don't want to play with me again. Who knows? When we're making the new cards for these decks, we want to use them to support the themes of the deck. So, of course, you saw a bunch of elves and elf tribal stuff in the previous deck. Makes a lot of sense. Here, it's what are some foretell cards we could make that would go into commander decks? All right, and especially into this commander deck. Because there's some foretell cards in the main set, but they're not going to make your commander deck, all of them. Like, some of them will, but not the vast majority. So finding some new ones that can go in here is really, really nice. And so a number of the new card slots are dedicated to foretell cards. This being one that is totally awesome. It's a white way to protect all your stuff from a sweeper, and not just protect it, but also once again trigger all those ETB effects. And with foretell, it's pretty easy to put a 2-mana down payment on this and then leave 2 mana up to do a heroic intervention style thing later in the game. So Cosmic Intervention, Heroic Intervention. I don't think that's a coincidence. Hero of Bretagard. Once again, there's a lot of text on here, but exiling and exile matter cards for the Blink theme that is going on. This is sort of like a I've always loved Figure of Destiny style cards, and this is like a commander-sized version of that. So you're exiling stuff, giving it counters, and then it grows and gets bigger and bigger as that all occurs. If you get it up to 10, you definitely have earned that god status. This kind of design is always really fun to make. Stoic Farmer. So, I do want to comment one thing about this card. I've seen a lot of comments online about like, wow, you made worse core cartographer or something like that. And it's a rare. Well, first of all, I would contend this is a worse core cartographer. Being able to split the mana cost across 2 turns is certainly not irrelevant, right? If you have 2 mana lying around on some turn, you just put it in the foretell and then can cast it for 2 mana later on. So, but the big thing I want to address is the rare symbol. On our new cards index, we put the rare symbol on the new cards, right? So is this necessarily a rare on its own? No, not necessarily. I think if this were in a main set, I would probably put this at uncommon. But here it is because it is a brand new card featured in this deck. So the brand new front-facing foil card gets the premium mythic symbol. Down here, in the new cards in the decks, you just get the rare symbol. So that's what's going on here. Saga, Sage of the Beyond. I don't know, whenever I see this card, I always want to say Saga of the Beyond. Sage of the Beyond. Another foretell card. And once again, playing into that idea that it doesn't have to just be caring about foretell. I love that this is not just good in a foretell deck, because its second ability is good with foretell, but it's good with all kinds of stuff that you can cast from places other than your hand, including flashback, by the way. So if you're flashbacking back from your graveyard, hey, this makes all your stuff cost 2 less, which is pretty cool. That kind of multi-use thing is something we really aim to do with our commander designs, especially on the non-commanders. Like sometimes making a niche commander is okay, although with these decks, we want to have things that can be. It's always nice when you can open it up, right? So this is mostly a foretell commander, but you can do it with other stuff too. Sometimes making niche commanders, especially in a set like Commander Legends, where you have so many commanders, is really important, which is why you see some stuff there that can be extremely niche. But in general, I like opening things up like we did here with the Sage of the Beyond to be used in more places. This means more people will be excited to try out the card. All right, Spectral Deluge. Another foretell card and a board sweeper, which can be pretty brutal. Just blowing up or bouncing all your opponent's stuff for just 3 mana on a turn where you have it available. Surtland Elementalist. Yes, indeed. So this is a card that just shows up in. This is a set booster card, I believe, or a theme booster card. Excuse me, because of that Kaldheim expansion symbol. Very nice to have around. Another brand new foretell card. This one is super fun to play with. I remember watching a play test. This card was a blast. It's really fun to be able to foretell stuff that does not naturally have foretell, and the kind of fun shenanigans you can play with this. And the fact that do not by the way just discount the fact that this is 6 mana 4/4 flying. Whenever it attacks, draw a card, and then of course like it's got the extra bonus of making whatever you exile cost 2 less. But yeah, this card is pretty sweet. I had a lot of fun playing with this card. Here's some. Back into reprints now. He's a nice angel that, once again, a little bit of main deck graveyard destruction. Really nice to kind of show people, hey, you should have some of this in your deck. You might want it around. Some other big angels. One thing what we did do with this deck is include a number of angels, given that there are Valkyries hanging out in Kaldheim. Really thought it would help play into what was going on, and just feel a little Kaldheim-y, even if these were not originally set on Kaldheim. There's your board sweeper, as I mentioned. In a control deck, you're going to have a number of these. Blink everything. Hooray. Good to blink. This, well, sometimes you can't blink, but you can bring stuff back from the graveyard, and this card does exactly that, being a lasting effect that gets you a bunch of your ETB triggers back on the battlefield. Yeah, we could not include Restoration Angel in this deck. It was just, with all the blinking you wanted to do, with the theme of the deck, it just made sense. And one of the things we talked about was giving it brand new artwork, which we got here. This is Kaldheim themed artwork featuring Restoration Angel, which is pretty cool in my book. Just made a lot of sense to reface this beloved old card. Stormherd, speaking of, that's a way to win the game. You've got Sun Titan. Another thing you find on Kaldheim, of course, big giants. Lots of giants in Norse mythology, and so a little nod to that here. Something that we talked about, getting giants and angels in here. Fun little Battle Bond mythic rare showing up here. I remember this showed up in a Legacy for a brief stint of time. I don't know that it still does, but whenever I see a Battle Bond card show up, it always makes me smile. So turn them all into pigs. Once again, a sort of sweeper. You can call it a sweeper, sort of, maybe. Day of the Dragons. This is a very wonky card. But it does blink all your stuff, which I think is easy to overlook. And you can blink this one enchantment if you have a way to blink your enchantment and blink all of your creatures. So yeah, keep that in mind. Otherwise, also just making a bunch of dragons is pretty sweet. This was a card that I believe was from Game Night, if I'm remembering correctly. So you might not have seen it before, but it is in fact a reprint, and it's a cool one to have. Another card that scales on your opponents. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. And turn all of your tokens into new threats. Pretty sweet. Yes, another card that we had to include in a blue-white blink deck. Brago, of course, blinks everything whenever it connects. Really powerful card. We got some mana ramp here, diamonds, boots. And then onto our land base, we've got some fun stuff here. Note the art choice on Command Tower. This is from the Eldraine one. Lots of your blue-white lands. We got these basic lands. They're very nice from Kaldheim. Love the Aurora Borealis one there. All right, and then we're into some brand new Kaldheim cards. So, of course, a lot of these are going to be foretell cards. Just like how the last ones were elf cards, a lot of these are going to be foretell cards because the deck needs a bunch to hit critical mass with Raynar. We got Iron Verdict, Warrior's Blast, all kinds of foretell stuff. When you're going wide, by the way, this card can be quite strong. No one ever expects like the +2 instant speed, +2 all your stuff instant speed trick in Commander, but when you're suddenly attacking for 30 off this card, it feels really nice. Draw spell, the much discussed Raven form. Once again, probably a topic for another video. A lot of opinions about that card. I have some, but I'll share later maybe, another time. Foretold Matters, of course, makes sense that Nico Defies Destiny would show up here. This card, I was confused this ability earlier with what was on Raynar, which is why I said draw a card. But yeah, these two cards go hand in hand. They fit really well together. And this one does work with Rebound too, which is really, really nice. So you can, I have a lot of ideas for Vega Commander decks I think would be pretty fun. So this is the kind of card that if you want, you could always swap Vega in as your commander if you want to play a little bit of a different strategy. So the new ring for some mana ramp. Got this as a great way to draw cards later on. Snow, Glacial Floodplain, and then we're at the tokens. Got some Thopters, got some fresh-looking Spirits, some Pegasi for Stormherd. Why only 2? You might wonder, why only 2? If Stormherd is going to make like 40 tokens. If you're going to make a bunch of tokens with the card, often we include 2, so you can show tapped and untapped status, and then put dice on each of these. So that's why you get the numbers you do sometimes. Spirits, Soldiers, another one of these cards. And then on the back side, we've got Birds, Bluebird for Raven form, normal white birds. Kithkin Soldiers, shout out to our my friend who's a Kithkin fan, will probably comment in the comments about these friends in this awesome new token frame, by the way. The Boars for Curse of the Swine, Replicated Ring. You're gonna need more than one if you make tokens of these, but yeah, once again, I recommend you can use a dice to represent them. And then Dragon for Day of the Dragons, of course. So there you have it. That is what's going on in the 2 Kaldheim Commander decks. If you have any thoughts, let me know in the comments down below. And otherwise, I will talk with you again on Friday. And in the meantime, you have a lot of fun brewing with some brand new legends. You got this. Let's see what we get for our foil. Skemp. What? Okay, check out. What is this? This is amazing. So we get foil, signed, rare, foil rare. Showcase uncommon. Okay, this is nuts.